I'm Suzanne Crane. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I help women who struggle from career fatigue identify the ways that they get in their own way. And I got to that place because I thought I didn't need coaching, and it turns out that I did, and it was magical and magnificent. And when we take the information that we learn about ourselves and the ways that we're getting in our own way and use that to inform micro adjustments rather than taking on a whole huge transformation at once, we can empower ourselves through those micro adjustments, which over time turn into grand change. And as leaders, that ripple effect really supports and helps everyone around us. I spent 30 years in learning and development in the tech industry. Today, I lead a team of learning consultants who support the enablement needs of our entire software organization. And that involves development, software sales, delivery, security, operations, IT, and analytics, and all of their learning and development needs, which are many and varied. There was something really interesting that came up just briefly in my elevator pitch earlier around not being someone who believed in coaching. And I think that's the most important thing about my story that I like to share with others is I was the walking, talking embodiment of judgment around coaching. And I just thought, like, I don't need that. I was very stoic. That's nice. Thank you very much. And I really actually kind of looked down on the discipline. I once had a health coach that I had to fire because I just thought she couldn't help me. And in hindsight, it turned out that I just wasn't ready to be helped. It was more about my readiness than her effectiveness. And so I think that's what's unique about my story and sort of my whole coming full circle to really embracing coaching and adopting coaching and becoming a coach in that context is pretty unique. I met a woman who was a coach who was actually coaching a mentor of mine, and it was really a magical meeting. It was one of those moments where you're like, wow, there's this great chemistry here. We're not really sure why, but as we sat next to each other during lunch the first time we met, we were just kind of looking at each other like, do you feel that? Yeah, I feel that. Do you feel that? Just really great professional chemistry that continued to exist in every interaction that we had together. And it turns out that she was coaching my mentor. And they had invited me to contribute to a group coaching program for women from a learning and development perspective. And it wasn't my area of discipline. So I referred them to a colleague of mine who was in the leadership enablement domain. And they came back twice. And by the second time they came back to me, I said, okay, they're not asking because it's my role. They're asking because they believe that we have vision lock and I would be a good contributor to their program. And so I realized at that moment in time, okay, that's interesting. You don't go with the job title, you go with vision lock. And so it was an interesting leadership development aha moment that I had in that moment. And I chose to participate in this leadership program for women, which was phenomenal. And my mentor's coach ended up becoming my coach in a roundabout sort of way. And by participating in the women's leadership program, I was coached as a participant. And then when I went on to co-facilitate that workshop, I was being coached and doing coaching and learning about the coaching discipline. And the ultimate transformation that I experienced and went through was just phenomenal. I'm a different person today. I met future Suzanne, I met younger Suzanne through all of that process, and it's just been incredible. So I was inspired to become a coach because I had a little bit of a talent in that area, but also because it really transformed me. And I thought I was already a well-baked cake, if you will. I would say the number one thing that's happened is I moved out of managing and into leading. And the way that I lead is through the coaching discipline. And so even in my one-on-ones, they start with, what would you like to talk about today? I open the canvas for my people to tell me what's on their mind. And it's through the discovery that we go through or through the um, exploration, if you will, the curious, powerful questions that I'm asking them, they're finding their own answers and their own way forward. And it's a great way to empower them to unearth ideas and genius from the team and the talent that exists on the team that would otherwise lay dormant. And it allows me to do less of the micromanagement type of work that I was doing. It was well intended, but it wasn't having the kind of impact that it was. I was reading a book recently called Multipliers, and they really the authors distinguish between leaders who are accidental diminishers and leaders who are multipliers, and how often we aren't diminishers because we intend to be. We do that by accident. It's all well intended. But if you end up falling into the trap of micromanaging your team because you're the one with all the answers, and they follow your vision and your guidance and the ways to go about doing things, it really is micromanaging and you're really diminishing them. And I would contend that it was actually the level one coach training that moved me into becoming a multiplier rather than a diminisher. And I think that's just such a critically important and valuable skill as a leader. I have a team member who's been with us a little over a year, and I remember vividly one day she said to me, "Oh, that's an interesting way to, I've noticed you've changed the way that you open our one-on-one calls." And I love it. And it's like that. It's in a formal coach client environment. As you go through the exploration process, you're turning over stones, and every once in a while you find a diamond. And that diamond is that insight or that awareness, and it comes from the client, and they get excited, and you feel that energy shift and change, and you ride that with them, right? And it turns into the structured action planning and the accountability. The same thing is happening in my one-on-ones with my team. That will, what do you want to talk about? It starts with what they want to talk about, and they have things on their mind. They have wins that they want to celebrate, and they have challenges that they want to talk through, and they have projects that they want to discuss. And they also have stuff going on at home that they might want to work through and talk about. And so, whatever it is that they bring to that conversation gives us opportunity to do the exploration. And it is in the act of exploration that we're turning over stones and finding those diamonds and those golden nuggets that actually accelerate their ability to deliver results for the company. It's phenomenal. I never expected that. I never saw that coming. I love it. It's pretty cool. The way that it's expanded my role is it's given structure to the change that has to happen when another book I'll reference, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? There's this number of behaviors that we exhibit when we're in junior roles in an organization and in manager roles in an organization and even in senior manager roles in an organization. When you shift to director, senior director, vice president, there's something different that happens. It's in the heart of that what got you here won't get you there. And the what gets you there, there's so many things about coaching that are a part of that world, that self-awareness, the listening skills, the emotional management. I have the more senior you become in an organization, the more people will come at you with their business, and they're defending their territory, or they're not on vision lock with you. And increasingly the time pressure gets tighter because the deadlines get tighter, and the level of impact to errant decisions gets more severe. And in that environment, it's critically more important to have self-awareness and self-control. And so, having been coached for some number of years, that's what I was working on, was emotional self-awareness and getting to understand my own triggers and that self-knowledge. And it's out of that body of knowledge of myself that allows me to execute in different ways in a senior leadership role than I would have had I not gone through that process in my own leadership development journey. If someone were to ask me for advice around whether or not coaching is a beneficial tool for them in their leadership journey, I would say absolutely. It is a beneficial tool. Do not hesitate. Sign up today. And if you get up, be coached, but also in parallel, get coach training for yourself so that you can not only get the coaching, but be a coach as well to the people that you lead in your organization. It's a great investment in yourself. If your company doesn't sponsor it, go pay for it. I've paid for it out of pocket myself because it's so important. Um, and if you don't have time to take the full 6 month training, level one CTEDU, hire a coach and start there because having good coaching has a knock-on effect to the way that you think and the way that you talk to others. And without, even without the core training, you start to develop those skills because you're experiencing it and you experience the benefit of it. But certainly, when you're ready to next level, that 6 month training is a great investment in time. And in fact, I have already started the level two course and am thrilled with now taking all of the foundations that I learned in the 101 level and wrapping it with my style. So coaching to me is a space, first and foremost. We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with all of the tools and the technology, and there's just no space. There's no space for thought. There's no we have the ability to do six things at once quickly. We have the ability to use technology to replace, to summarize a transcript, for example. There's no space left. And I think coaching creates that rare and completely invaluable pocket of time where you can unearth curiosity. And like I mentioned, you can coaching puts a structure around that. So it's not just loose curiosity, there's structure to it. And that framework activates the changes that capitalize on any insights that are found by turning over and going through a process of exploration in a coaching session. It unearths the wisdom within us, so there's agency there. And then that framework allows us to capitalize on the pathways that we find the most meaningful ourselves. And by we, I mean any of us being coached. So as a client, my genius is being unearthed. As a coach, I'm creating the space for my client's genius to find its voice, where elsewhere there's no space for that. It started with giving me self-awareness. Layered on top of that self-awareness then was some intentionality about myself and my behaviors and who I was and how I was versus who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be. And then a purpose for my relentless curiosity. I spent 35 years, 30 years, 35 years in a learning and development career. And it all is the foundation of all of that is curiosity. I mentioned two books already. You can tell I'm an avid reader. I am curious all the time about everything. And that curiosity now has purpose and structure and a place to, and a means with which to do good in the world in a very powerful way. I think the other thing I would add on to that, just personally, it's improved my relationships with my friends, my family, my coworkers because of all that work I did on myself. And then I'm actually living my best life. I am achieving the goals that I set for my most important goals that I was ready to abandon 5 years ago because I was thinking, oh, I'm getting older and oh, there's so much work involved in that. And I've have all these behaviors and routines, and you start to convince yourself that your habits are who you're going to be for the rest of your life rather than, oh, I can change that if I want to. And if I can change it in this very small way long enough, then the new mental patterns are there to support it. Coaching gave me a way forward for all of my most important dreams and all of my greatest potential. And it changed and impacted my life because I'm living that out now. It's awesome. After the second overview that I had with my coach mentor, I realized this sort of incremental nature of building coaching skills a little bit at a time. And the value of going through an experience that made me sweat just thinking about it, having someone look over my shoulder in that very intimate coaching moment with a client and to get the feedback that was going to make me a better coach and to do that without feeling judged was so powerful. I remember leaving that second overview going, oh, this is good. This is really good. I'm actually a pretty good coach, and here's just the fine tuning I need. I think that was powerful because that idea didn't just help in that context of that overview and that coaching. It's universally true in life in general. Um, and what's really cool is like several months later, some of those things that seemed um, so new at the time and so big and so really hard to adapt and adopt have become more routine. And so when I think about 6 months, wow, that was a lot, it's it requires that to get it all down and to really understand it and to make good use of those skills together in a way that is that aligns to the standards of the industry. So I think that was really the aha moment I had was like, oh, I need all of this. And this part that I was dreading the most is the most important part. The number one piece of advice that I would give someone who's thinking about being a coach is to get a coach and make sure it's an ICF certified coach, right? Because there's a lot of people out there calling themselves coaches. Most people, if you ask them, have their own definition of what coach means. There is a very specific definition in the ICF world, and ICF certified coaches are the right resources to have. And if you're thinking about being a coach, you want to have a really good coach. What I would tell younger Suzanne is the thing that you avoid the most is the thing you need to do. There's something about that thing that you're avoiding that is special for you. Go figure that out. What I would add to all of that is really be vulnerable in this space and say, I'm constantly coaching myself. I've been coaching myself on this call, coaching myself all the time because and that's the benefit of sticking with it and having a coach over a lengthy period of time because the neural pathways get built in your mind. The questions that you get asked are the types of questions you start asking yourself, and they become the questions you start asking other people. And so there's a real knock-on effect from being coached to be able to be a great coach. So and also just that there's enough space out there for all of us to do our coaching, right? It was interesting to me to hear that this space, this corporate coach, if you will, inside of an organization is a more unique story out of your the alumni that you speak with. And it just speaks to me that there's so much more opportunity out there, and a niche for us all. So I'm very curious to hear who's watching this video and what they're going to go tackle.